Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Free Thought Forum, brought to you by the friendly folks at Pennsylvania Nonbelievers. This is a bi-monthly live show. It is a call-in show, and we will be putting our number up on the screen shortly. And we welcome any opinions, suggestions, or anything that you may have. This is my co-host tonight, Jacob. I can't pronounce his last name, but it starts with a Z, and it's not Zorro, so...
Good enough.
I'm your host tonight, Doug Diggens, and tonight we're going to talk ad nauseum about the Council at Nicea. I sort of indicated that we were going to do this about 2 weeks ago, and that was before I realized that it was going to be such a task. I thought that putting together an informative, factual program about the Council of Nicea would not be a terribly difficult task. I was quite wrong. I thought that it would, I would not be able to find enough historical material to present a case. There are mountains of documents, and in many respects, most of it is contradictory in some form or another. When it comes to such an intangible thing like religion, suddenly everyone becomes an author and feels comfortable presenting the things that they know is right as substantiated evidence supporting the position they hold and the way that they think things should be. Suddenly, they can read God's mind. How human of them.
I think anytime you talk about history, you're going to find contradictory sources, because it seems like after the historical event, if somebody else, like if power changes somewhere, the people who take over try to rewrite history to make it sound like they were the right guys all along.
Yeah, and plus they go through a long procedure, sometimes not so long, to destroy any proof or evidence to the contrary before they... before anyone really has a chance to study it or contradict them. But how do you decide what truth is when you're presented two plausible versions or more from two or more plausible people? Maybe it is dependent on what side of the fence that you may want to be on. And I say want to be on, but whose truth is it, and will it benefit you one way or the other? If you if you do it hard enough, Trump, I can't talk tonight. If you do it hard enough, belief trumps truth every time, and denial does become just a river in Egypt.
Ooh.
Yeah, all right. Just...
Enough with the puns. Enough with the puns. For those of you who didn't see, a couple of weeks ago, he went off on some puns for a while, and I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, of course, our technical manager and guru and our technical god, he is in favor of puns. A lot of people, but puns are not for everyone like that. But I'm sure quite out there in the billions and billions of people that are watching this show, that somewhere along the line, there's got to be a few people out there that enjoy puns as much as I do, like that. Right. If you've ever been on a protracted trial or even watched one on televisions where they air 100% of the testimony, I'm certain that some of you have been astonished at a particular verdict that was completely opposite of what you would have delivered. Yet the same evidence was heard by you and all the jurors. So, how could you have a hung jury in some cases? Where is the truth? As it was in the case of early religious writings, when we have a large group of people trying to decide by examining copious quantities of different documents written by different people at various times in the past, and all with the individual personal values and agendas pertaining to many different concepts, how then does everyone ever reach a consensus? Is it by reason? Well, yeah, like that. Is it by inserting your own values and experiences in life into your value system? Yes. In almost every case, the baggage you bring with you influences your judgment, even though you were explicitly instructed excuse me, to consider only the cold hard facts presented to you. Well, what about human frailty? Does that play a part? Well, most certainly, especially your mental strength and determination, combined with values imparted to you by school, family, and friends as you grow up. Bullying, cajoling, yelling, insulting, and outright threats play one of the largest roles in a person's declared position. There are always at least one alpha male in any group, and in most instances will attempt to bring a jury or a committee to his way of thinking by any means possible. Excuse me, my throat is dry as can be. Thank you. With this cantankerous behavior always in the picture, it should not be too difficult to imagine what it was like in 325 AD when Emperor Constantine I ordered about 1,800 bishops to travel up to 1,200 miles to attend his first council of Nicea. The 1,800 was said to be every single Christian bishop known to be within the area governed by Rome and Constantine. Now,
the key word "said to be."
Yeah, said to be.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what official history says. More realistically, I would say anything over half would be optimistic.
And there were some people bishops in England that would also agree that was not the case, because no bishops in England were invited, or at least they didn't show up anyway. Well, these were not happy campers, considering the average speed of travel at that time was about 3.5 miles per hour. There was no rapid transit except camel transit. However, Constantine did agree to pay travel and lodging expenses for those that came. Of course, that money was taken out of tax revenues. In addition, luxurious palatial accommodations were provided to the council to meet, lest they were to be confused as common rabble by the other common rabble in Rome at the time.
This sounds vaguely familiar to those of us in America.
Yes.
You're paying for church housing expenses as well as their property taxes that they're not paying. And so on and so forth. So I can definitely sympathize with the ancient Romans in this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a never-ending story down through history, and when Constantine brags that he paid for all that, all he did was took money out of one pocket and put it in another, So it eventually the people always pay anyway. Flavius, Valerius, Aurelius, Constantinus, Augustus, the 57th emperor of the Roman Empire, a.k.a. Constantine the First, Constantine the Great, Saint Constantine. I wonder who the heck really made him a saint. I'm sure it was himself looking in a mirror. He was born the 27th of February of the year 272 AD. And his reign lasted from 25 July of the year 306 AD until his death on the 22nd of May of the year 337 AD, at the age of 65. He didn't even get a chance to collect Social Security, poor guy. You know?
Well, considering back then the average lifespan, I think, was around 47. That's actually not bad.
Yeah, he was doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Plus, he must have had a lot of bodyguards as well, because,
Yeah.
well, I mean, everyone, every ruler in the Roman Empire always worried about assassination.
Yeah, and it happened a couple of times.
Yeah, quite a number of times. Of the 1,800 bishops invited, only, according to church records, only 318 chose to accept Constantine's kind invitation. However, since each of the bishops had a cadre of scribes, priests, and lesser help to accompany them, the actual number of attendees was probably closer to the original 1,800. And as I said before, delegates came from every region of Rome, of the Roman Empire, except Britain. So, what can I say? Can you imagine what it was like? All these people and all the caravans that they must have had there, just loaded up with provisions, especially if they come at the far end of it. It must have been a nightmare. So, anyway, varying greatly, the reason stated why he invited so many bishops to Nicea depends upon the source that you reference. And that is where there are literally thousands of sources. What is known for a fact is that there was a great unrest in Rome, and that there was great, and it was about religious differences. Regarding different religions, sects, and the rights afforded to one group versus the restrictions and punishments placed on another. Don't forget, I mean, those were not really good times for Christians. However, it did get better. But being a very astute person, Constantine realized that keeping an entire population happy and supportive of his reign was a daunting task. But he had the propaganda machine well tuned in his favor and planned a well thought out plan. One more. Anyway, the Roman Empire was polytheistic, as was Constantine at that time, and hundreds, possibly thousands, of sects were vying for recognized authoritative position within the empire. The first ecumenical council at Nicea was the first effort to attain consensus in the Roman Catholic Church through an assembly supposedly representing all of Christendom. The Roman Catholic Church and the common people had only lukewarm feelings toward Constantine during the early part of his reign. But then Constantine had to follow in the giant footsteps of his father, and it seemed he seemed to have an aura of illegitimacy about him at first. He would change that misconception before he died. Constantine the Great lived up to his self-invented moniker. Just a bit of trivia for the people here in York, Pennsylvania. Constantine lived in York, England, our namesake, during the spring and summer of 2007. So I've been looking around for statues of Constantine, but I've not found any in the area. But evidently there's a big one of him in York, England. So anyway, the council's main accomplishments were settlement of the Christological issues of the nature of the Son of God and his relationship to God the Father. The construction of the first part of the Creed of Nicea, establishing uniform observance of the date of Easter, because it had been confused every year back and forth, and also promulgation of early canon law. The council was the first occasion where the technical aspects of Christology were discussed openly and set strong precedents for all future ecumenical councils. For a number of years prior to Nicea's council, Constantine and the Roman Empire had been engaged in constant battles with some of their friends and enemies, and this council...
There was pretty much perpetual civil war in the empire.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was
always someone either at the border or standing behind you with a knife.
Right.
So it was just constant conflict. There is even a story where Constantine heard a rumor that someone was going to assassinate him. So he didn't hire. He told a eunuch, which was a lot of those people that had the clip at the time, to go sleep in his bed. And sure enough, I guess someone came in the night and killed this eunuch that was sleeping in his place. Evidently, it was not a good time to be a eunuch around.
Well, I mean, the emperors have always used doubles and like food tasters, checkers, and there's definitely a lot of people who have had to put their life on the line for an emperor.
Oh, gosh. I mean... Constantine and the Roman Empire had been engaged in constant battles, and Constantine saw this Nicene Council as a possible peace gap to placate the church and also to boost his public persona like that. Now, let me read just a little bit from an excerpt from Wikipedia, okay, and about Constantine. Okay, as emperor, Constantine enacted many administrative, financial, social, and military reforms to strengthen the empire. The government was restructured, and civil and military authority separated. A new gold coin, the solidus, was introduced to combine and combat inflation. Now, Jim, in our control room, if you'd just run, we've got some displays here of what some of the Roman coins look like. Emperor to reportedly convert to Christianity, Constantine played an influential role in the proclamation of the Edict of Milan. The Edict of Milan, which decreed religious tolerance. Now, that was tolerance. Okay, it didn't say religious freedom. But throughout the empire, Jim, I think that, okay, it's stuck, never mind. Throughout the empire, thereby being a professed Christian, it was far less dangerous.
And I should mention here part of the reason why Christians were being persecuted is, as aforementioned, the Romans were polytheistic. Now, they were actually tolerant of other people's gods as long as you honored theirs in return.
Exactly.
Which the Christians refused to do. So if something went wrong in the town, sometimes the Christians were getting blamed for not paying their respects to the local deity.
Yeah, well, they were the natural scapegoat.
Right. Which we can kind of relate to as atheists in this country.
Oh,
how we're constantly being blamed if something goes wrong.
And we're naturally evil.
Right, right. I mean, pagans were doing the same things to Christians 2,000 years ago.
Yes. And no matter where you go today, someone is always being blamed for something. Okay. Just continue on with the little Wikipedia reading here. In military matters, the Roman army was reorganized to consist of mobile field units and garrison soldiers capable of countering internal threats and barbarian incursions into the border that seem to happen all the time and really quite frequently. Constantine pursued successful campaigns against the tribes on the Roman frontiers, even resettling territories abandoned by some of his predecessors during the turmoil of the previous century. Well, so much for the Wikipedia. It was so up and down during that time. I suppose to a lesser extent it's still up and down now, but I mean, I wouldn't want to have lived during that period of time.
Right. Well, I mean, the American history has been very turbulent, so you can only imagine how turbulent a much bigger kingdom would have been.
Yeah.
And Rome, that's why, for how many people have tried to conquer the world, that's why they never succeed. Mm-hmm. Because they might be able to do it for a couple of years and then the whole thing just starts to collapse.
Yeah.
Because no one can, especially in those days with no quick communication, and it's so easy to overexpand to the point you can't reasonably govern it.
Can you imagine, though, what it would have been like if, in addition to their spears and shields, that all the Roman soldiers had AK-47s? Yeah. they might have conquered the world then. Anyway, the early Christian church, the Roman Catholic Church, reportedly considered him both a saint and a despot. The fluctuation in Constantine's reputation reflect the nature of ancient sources for his reign. Some say he was good, some say he's bad. There have been abundant and detailed sources, but they have been strongly influenced by the official propaganda at the time.
Almost like every leader today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, you have one side saying one thing about a leader, with somebody else saying something else, and you have propaganda flying back and forth. It's very common in politics, and that's what Constantine was a politician.
Oh, by all means, and everything was always one-sided, and since he was emperor, it was his side.
Yeah.
There are few widely accepted, unadulterated surviving histories or biographies dealing with Constantine's life and rule. Now, like the Bible, original and contemporary sources by those actually witnessing historical events are rare to non-existent. And those that do exist were often unscrupulously edited at a later date. Forgers are everywhere.
Yeah. Bart Ehrman wrote a book just on the forgeries related to the Bible. And it's a pretty long book, and he's just summarizing a bit. I mean, he didn't even go into that great a detail of it. But it's sometimes you had forgers who were actually threatening to be careful of other forgeries. That's how weird it was.
Yeah, and throughout history, as it is today, back then, document shredding parties were commonplace. But throughout history, even under the threat of death, when powerful people even mentioning destroying or confiscating things that belong to other people, things start to get hidden. However, after a period of time, sometimes, things become found. Truth must be unwoven from the tapestry of both innocent assumptions and outright lies that are part of an agenda intended to further the writer's cause. People today look upon our modern society with a somewhat jaundiced eye, since everyone in any sort of power position at all has an army of public relations experts at their beck and call that can whip up historical documents at a minute's notice. Evidence can be manufactured, pro and con, and no authentic-looking forgeries are beyond the talents of the forgers, both ancient and of current day. In this year, 2014, forgeries of antiquities are a billion, that's with a B, billion-dollar industry. And, even large and famous museums throughout the world have been duped by skilled artisans and have spent millions of dollars on a single counterfeit treasure that has escaped detection by supposed experts. With biblical ideology and the vast number of documents present throughout the ages, just where to look for truth can be mind-boggling. Of course, I will admit now that my mind is more easily boggled now than it was 20 years ago. But right. Here are some of the boggles of the councils of Nicea, what I consider boggles anyway. At first, they removed all reference to reincarnation from existing canon documents. Over 300 different versions of the Bible were burned by the council after they reached consensus.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because, Lee Strobel in his famous book, The Case for Christ, tried to make a huge deal out of early manuscripts to the Bible, and even tried to make the claim that even if we lost the New Testament, we could still reconstruct it from this ancient evidence. But he neglects to mention that our earliest complete Bibles are completely different from each other and what we have today.
Oh yeah,
I mean they won't know. That's one of the things that's trying to find the truth. Is so many times as apologists will distort it, and like. Lee Strobel even went on to say that there's thousands of early manuscripts of the Bible, but when you actually scrutinize what he's saying, most of those don't come until the 9th century.
And later.
Or later, and they're counting fragment. They'll count like little pieces and scraps of a book as.
Yeah, they get a little piece about this big, and then they can predict what the rest of the document looked like.
Right, that's what they would say.
Did you know that the accounts of the raising of Lazarus were removed from Mark on the instructions of the council, as it had overtones of a mystery cult? A mystery cult. I mean, nothing's more than a mystery cult than the Roman Catholic Church.
Well, no, I don't think. I think you're misunderstanding what that's saying. Are you familiar with the pagan mystery religions?
Yes.
Okay, I think
okay.
That's what they're referring to. Is, and for those of you who don't know, the early pagan mystery religions were these sort of repackage. They kind of repackaged some of the old gods into new religions in this time. Like, for example, there was the Osiris cults, the Zalmoxis cult. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but there was a particular pattern amongst what these religions were doing and how they were forming. Mm-hmm. And when you look at Christianity, it looks exactly like one of those, down to every little piece that they were doing. Mm-hmm. And what's funny about that is there's actually, in the book of Mark, there is still a section that makes it explicitly clear it's talking about a mystery religion. Because one of the hallmarks of a mystery religion was they had these secret teachings that would be hidden behind parables, mm-hmm. where insiders would know what the truth is, but to outsiders it was supposed to be hidden, a mystery, which is how they got to be known as mystery religions.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that at the time. Yeah.
And what I was saying is, in Mark, there's a section that says, when Jesus was alone with his disciples, he says, "Unto you it has been given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God, but to those who are without, all of these things will appear in parables." And you can go on to see the rest of the quote. It's very clearly talking about a mystery religion, a mystery cult.
Yeah. Let's give you another boggle here. The Roman Catholic Church created the canon of Christian scripture at the Council of Nicea at the same time that they determined the doctrine of Trinity through the assassination of a few voting bishops by one vote. Right. But this also is revisited in the Da Vinci Code. If you listen to what they're saying there, they're basically repeating that. Yeah.
And I should. I also like to mention that I've seen Bart Ehrman point this out. Is the original notion of the Trinity never appears explicitly in the Bible, mm-hmm. and the earliest manuscript that said it, and what they actually used to argue this point, was not actually in Greek. The original one was found in Latin, which was actually a translation of a different manuscript that came from Greek. And to argue the Trinity, they translated that Latin text back into Greek.
Yeah, that was Latin Vulgate.
Yeah, so you have, essentially, it comes from a botched translation.
Mm-hmm. Well, there have been a lot of botched translations. Yeah, right. We could sample more, cite more examples like this, but we only have an hour show. Right. Like that. Looking back to ancient Rome, you know, the paganism of the Aristotles, I can't talk. Say the word.
Aristocracies.
Thank you. It's well documented, and it was further authenticated by the coinage of yesteryear, which we just showed you a little while ago. If you want to run those coins again there, and just take a look at the thing, okay, Jim, if you just want to just run the coins again. Okay.
Well, I think we had an issue with audio last time he did it.
Oh, there wasn't any audio. Oh, I mean with our audio.
Yeah, our audio. Oh, so you might have a problem running that again.
Okay. If that was the case, never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. just got something in my earpiece saying that he knew what to do now. Okay. Anyway, Constantine went through several convenient pagan religious conversions throughout his life. However, his next to last conversion was one of his most brilliant schemes. Constantine converted to solar monotheism. Yeah, that's right. The one and only true God was the sun that shines upon us, Sol, S-O-L. And that image was struck on the coins with the likeness of Constantine. The use of Sol's image appealed to both the Christians who found, Christians that found solar monotheism less objectionable than the traditional pagan pantheon. Okay, now, can you see how Constantine seemed to be slowly easing himself closer and closer to monotheistic Christianity? Yeah, without actually converting or stepping over the line?
Yeah, there was a lot of points in Constantine where he was appealing to joint symbolism, things that could equally apply to both Christianity and paganism. You know, he did his best throughout his career to appeal to both.
Oh, he was a statesman, to say the very at least.
That's why we keep calling him a politician throughout this show, because that's what he really was.
Yeah. So, you know, why is it believed that Constantine converted to Christianity prior to a certain battle? Well, in reality, he did not. It is documented that he waited until he was on his deathbed on the 22nd of May, 337. Now, this revelation that he waited so long really irked the church, since they waxed philosophic about Constantine's conversion and about his faith in the Christian God. Constantine was a master of misdirection, like I said, as far as religion went, like that, and politics. Why do we think that he converted to Christianity earlier in his life? Well, post-propaganda to support a lie. One more. Jim, would you mind turning down the God mic, please? We can hear you in the background over our earpiece. Okay. The Battle of Milvian Bridge by Giulio Romano. Now, listen to this, because this accounts also for pretty much the way that it was described in the Bible, like that. Maximentus organized his forces, still twice the size of Constantine, in long lines facing the battle plan, with their backs to the river Tiber, and Constantine's army arrived at the field bearing unfamiliar symbols on either its standards or its soldiers' shields. Now, keep in mind, okay, that superstition and the unfamiliar always have kept man's self-confidence at bay. Now, according to Lysandius, Constantine was visited by a dream the night before the battle, wherein he was advised to mark the heavenly sign of God on the shields of his soldiers by means of a slanted X with the top of its head bent around. He marked Christ on their shield. Eusebius describes another version where, while marching at midday, he saw with his own eyes in the heavens a trophy of the cross arising out of the light of the sun, carrying the message in hoc signo vinces, with this sign you will conquer. In Eusebius's account, Constantine had a dream the following night in which Christ appeared with the same heavenly sign and told him to make a standard, the labrium, for his army in that form. Oh, gosh, what a wonderfully concocted story, huh? On the eve of the battle, Constantine received yet another sign from God. Eusebius is vague about when and where this narrative took place, but it was before Maximinius, before the war. The war before the one with Maximentus, begins. Okay, Eusebius describes the sign as Kai traversed by Hero. Am I pronouncing that right?
I think so.
Yeah. A symbol representing the first two letters of the Greek spelling of the word Christos, or Christ. You know, the Eusebian description of the version has been explained as a type of solar halo called a sundog, a meteorological phenomenon which can produce similar effects. In 315, a medallion was issued at Ticinium showing Constantine wearing a helmet emblazoned with Shide Rho, and coins issued at Sicilia in 317 and 318. Oh, I just lost my cotton picking tooth in the front. Oh. Okay, well, I had a cap that just fell out. Anyway, replete with the same image. Okay, now...
Well, one thing I'd like to digress on here.
Thank you, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm feeling like a hillbilly now.
I'd like to digress on. You mentioned Eusebius a couple times, and what you're talking about is Eusebius of Caesarea.
Yes.
Who, for those of you who have never heard of him, he's actually not that well known, but actually Christianity kind of owes a debt of gratitude to this big fat liar. He rewrote his official church history about 5 times that we actually have evidence for.
Yeah.
Probably did it more than that. He's known for... he has a lot of forgeries to his name, a lot of proof, and he's actually a prime suspect for forging a few passages in the works of Josephus. Like, for example, some Christian apologists will hold up this reference to Jesus in the works of Josephus.
Yeah, being mentioned in there.
Yeah, the testimony of Flaviana. But he's the prime suspect for it because he's the first person who starts citing it. And even though people other early church fathers had no clue that this passage existed, it was him who started it. And so he's known for creating forgeries and rewriting his own history. And actually he's I think there was even an earlier version he had of that story that you just read where he gives a completely different story. It was only in his posthumous biography of Constantine that he went back and rewrote and added the miracle conversion story.
But you know, they knew that this entry into Josephus was a forgery. I mean, it was an obvious forgery because they compared this particular passage that was supposedly by Josephus, that said that, yes, that he had seen Jesus and that he could in fact that he was in fact the Son of God and everything, but the way that he phrased it was entirely out of context and syntax with the way that Josephus wrote anyway. Right. So I mean, it's like anyone could see it.
It was out of context. It was out of character.
Yeah, and someone just plugged it in.
And there was no way a skilled historian would have wrote a passage like that without digressing on every point, or at least some sort of other back reference here or there. And there's also the point where, if you look at the next paragraph, it refers back to the previous paragraph before the testimonium. And one of the key ways to figure out if a passage is a forgery or not is simply take it out and see how the text works without it.
Yeah.
And if you can tell that that one, say you take out the questionable passages and the passage from one side flows directly into the other one, then that's a good indication that passage was not there to begin with.
Yeah. So, anyway, so let's move forward again in time to the Council of Nicea and to the topics designated by Constantine that needed clarification and or revision. Now keep in mind that all the bishops invited were instructed to bring with them all the Gospels and all other religious documents in all languages available to them. They further were instructed to bind each document in leather to protect it from the elements during the long trip. You know, can you imagine the enormous nightmare of preparation required for this sojourn? Like that. Some of the things that they were talking about, of course, was Arianism, or part of the Arian religion, and discussing the nature of Christ, also the celebration of Passover, Easter, the ordination of eunuchs, okay, prohibition of kneeling on Sunday, and from Easter to Pentecost, the validity of baptism by heretics. And also they addressed what they call lapsed Christians, people that have been Christian and then just sort of got out of it all. And examination of everything else, where they supposedly were going to check for forgeries, like that. Of all the subjects discussed, and the accepted consensus would be transcribed by their scribes into new documents, and new original words of God will be signed and bear the approval of Emperor Constantine and the Church, and would therefore be considered as both civil and religious law, the breaking of which would result in significant punishment. The emperor was present only as an overseer and presider. He did not cast any official vote. Constantine organized the council along the lines of the Roman Senate, so he was familiar with that. Constantine was present during the opening of the proceedings, and when the initial discussions of matters at hand, and the discussion of matters at hand, at first it is written, he became so angry at the petty arguments, jealousies, bigotry, indecisions of the council that he decided to leave them to their own devices for a few weeks and ordered them to have a consensus when he returns. Now, Constantine's role regarding Nicea was that of supreme civil leader and authority in the empire. As emperor, he maintained the responsibility for maintaining civil order, and he sought that the church be of one mind and at peace. They were not. When first informed of religious unrest in Alexandria due to the Arian disputes, he was greatly troubled and rebuked both Arius and Bishop Alexander for originating the disturbance and allowing it to become public. Aware also of the diversity of opinion regarding the celebration of Easter. I mean, they used to go back and forth trying to decide when it should be, because it was based on the unreliable Julian calendar. Anyway, and in hoping to settle both issues at once before he invited all the bishops, he previously sent the honored Bishop Joseus of Cordova, as part of Hispania, to form a local church council and reconcile those that were divided. Yeah, right. When that embassy failed, he turned to summoning a synod at Nicea, inviting the most eminent men of the churches in every country. He ordered them to resolve the disagreements arising from within the Church of Alexander over the nature of the Son, Jesus, in his relationship to the Father, God. In particular, the Son had, whether he had been begotten by the Father from his own being with no beginning, or rather begotten in time, or created out of nothing, therefore having a beginning. Saint Alexandria of Alexandria, God, it's tough to talk here, took the first position. The popular presbyter Arius, from whom the term Arianism comes, took the second. Now, it's running a little bit late here, and there's a little bit of confusion here about Nicea here. But anyway, the council decided against the Arians overwhelmingly. Of the 318 attendees, all but 2 agreed to sign the creed, and those 2, along with Arius, were banned to Illyria, well, only to return at a later time and resume a short reign of power. Now, can you imagine the arrogance and ego of all these bishops thinking they could actually read the mind of God? You know, if there was one in the first place, and understand what God's nature, really was?
Well, there's a lot of people who do that today anyway.
Well, every one of them.
What's that?
I said almost every one of them in the church. So anyway, while many new documents and doctrines and edicts came out of the Nicea Council, no new Bibles, canon, emerged immediately. However, the Roman Catholic Church did undergo significant changes after that first ecumenical council, and has been in a constant state of flux ever since. Remember that Christianity was illegal in the empire until the emperors Constantine and Licinius agreed in 313 to what has become known as the Edict of Milan, officially granting full tolerance to Christianity and all religions in the empire. The document had special benefits for Christians, legalizing their religion and granting them restoration for all property seized during the previous Diocletian persecution. Despite all the new policies that they came up with in 325 AD, Nicene Christianity did not become the state religion of the Roman Empire until 380 AD. Remember, Constantine died in 337, and that was 43 years beforehand, and he did not enact the new policy before he died. In the meantime, paganism remained legal and present in the public affairs. In spite of his outward embracing of Christianity, in 321, only 4 years before Nicea, Constantine declared Sunday to be an empire-wide declared day of rest in honor of the sun god, Sol. Gee, and he was so close to Jesus at the time, I guess. Anyway, at the time of the council, imperial coinage and, like I said, other imperial motifs still depicted pagan cult symbology in combination with the emperor's image. Now, if you back the polytheistic worship belief, you could choose a god du jour and, to your heart's content. Okay, turn off your mic, please, Jim. Since there were literally hundreds of gods to go around, of course, if you were Jewish, you had a Bible, the Torah, that went on to become the Old Testament. If you were Christian, you'd have to wait for another couple of thousand years. We're starting to run out of time here, so I'll just quickly sum up here. Well, I don't do anything quickly. Okay. Did we receive from Nicea any earth-shattering revelations about religion, God, Jesus, or the way we view each other and the universe? Absolutely not. The only thing to come out of that council was more fantasy, dogma, and superstition from the Roman Catholic Church, like we have heard for 2,000 years. It was the Roman Catholic Church who decided what books would make up the Bible. In fact, in the final canon scripture, thereafter recognized by all Christians for over 1,000 years, plus or minus a few changes, was issued on the 28th of August of the year 397 by the Catholic Council of Carthage. Now, all I can say is, Jesus Christ, will this ever end like that? It's time for all churches, religions, and sects to fess up and admit that there is no invisible man in the sky. They are only in it for the power, and that mankind should be focusing not on a God, but on treating each other with kindness, respects, and a modicum of forgiveness, while we still will judge others from within our own glass houses. So anyway, the show went by quite quickly. Probably I had some more to throw in there, but we can do that at a later time. Love to give you at some time some of the thoughts of Arius. I mean, it really was a beaut. But so anyway, what have we got coming up for?
Just as a couple of reminders, our next table event is this coming Saturday at Riverfront Park in Harrisburg. It'll be Harrisburg Pride Fest. Then York Equality Day is coming up on the 3rd of August, followed by the Red Lion Street Fair on the 9th. And I'd also like to make this announcement that American Atheist is going to be launching Atheist TV next Tuesday at 7 p.m. So be sure to be looking out for that. It'll be on demand as well as from the streaming service Roku. That's ROKU. If you'd like to subscribe to this channel. Other than that, our next Free Thought Forum will be on the August 12th. We'll be